Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining. We're so excited to have you here today. We're going to be discussing universal design for learning in the adult education classroom. Today's April 26th, 2023. Can we go to the next slide, please, Long? Thanks. For those of you who aren't familiar with our Universal TA webinars, I just wanted to share with you a little bit about those. So today's session, as I said, is part of our Links Universal TA Wednesday webinar series, called them such not for anything other than because they take place the last Wednesday of every month. This monthly series covers topics that are of importance to you in the field, and we really focus on areas that are intended to help build your capacity in these areas. They are always recorded and available on the Links YouTube channel. There is a little bit of a delay, so please give us a little bit of grace, but we'll get those up there to you so that you can access all of them, share them with your colleagues, and refer to them as needed. Can we go to the next slide? Perfect, thanks. So before we get started, before I hand you over to Amanda, our fabulous presenter, I want to share with you some resources that we have available through Links. First, we have in our state resources and federal initiatives section, Learning to Achieve. Some of you might already be familiar with that. If not, you can click on the link that Long shared in the chat, or you'll see on the right-hand side of the slide a QR code that you can use to access that. We also have within our Links resource collection a few things: our Universal Design for Learning Guidelines version 2.2, which is a graphic organizer, the FLOE Inclusive Learning Design Handbook, and the CAST UDL Curriculum Self-Check. Again, on the right-hand side of our screen, we have a QR code that you can use to access our resource collection and look for those and other related resources. Last but not least, we encourage you to check out within our Links community, the Learners with Disabilities group, and the QR code is on the right-hand side to join that community as well. Again, all great resources. I hope you will explore those a little bit further. But without any more ado, I'm going to hand it over to Amanda.
Thank you so much, Marcella. And Luis and I are thrilled to be here. It's fun to see folks sharing where they're from in the chat. And we have some familiarity with your various states, and you might see some folks you know in these videos and in this presentation. We're hoping you will. So today, Luis and I are going to talk about universal design for learning and adult education. We're going to highlight some work that we've done recently with At.the, and we would really like to answer any questions you have from the field and have a discussion around how we can support you and what universal design for learning could look like in your context. So really quick, who we are. I'm Amanda Bastoni. I am the Director of Career and Technical and Adult Education at CAST, recently presented at COABE, which was a wonderful event. Before I ask Luis to introduce himself, I'm going to put him on the spot, which is always a little bit fun, but we've been toying with this idea around how do we identify? We come to the world, we are not single entities. We have a lot of ways that we identify and move through the world and lived experiences. And so we would also invite you, as you're telling us your name and the state you're from, maybe share with us how you identify. And Luis, I'll go first, and then I'm going to pass it to you as another example. So as I said, I'm Amanda Bastoni. I identify as someone who is currently living in a motorhome, traveling the country for a year with my husband. I identify as a cisgender female and a mother and a border collie lover. So dogs are my thing. And also someone who's passionate about learning and teaching. Luis, maybe I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks so much, Amanda. And I'm Luis Perez. I'm a Disability and Digital Inclusion Lead at CAS, where I've worked for the last 5 years. Have the pleasure of working with Amanda as part of our post-secondary and workforce development group. And I identify as a cisgender male, Hispanic American, and as a disabled person. And last, but most importantly, as a dog lover. I have a 15-year-old Bichon Frise poodle mix dog that we adopted a few years ago during the pandemic. So I love, I'm also a wildlife photographer, and I'm visually impaired.
Thank you so much, Luis. And we like to do this exercise just to help us show those intersectionalities and those points where we come together. And just so everyone knows, Bruno, Luis's dog, is fabulous. He's one of my favorite little faces to see on the screen when we co-present. So moving forward, our agenda today is really to introduce you to Universal Design for Learning. This will be a quick introduction. If you know about UDL, hopefully this is a review. If you don't know, hopefully this is enough to get you excited about learning more. We're going to also introduce, I hope Bruno makes an appearance too, Marcel. We're also going to introduce you to some new module project development that At.the has undertaken with CAST, which is the organization where Luis and I work. We're going to share some resources and, of course, hopefully engage in a question and discussion period. What I'd like to do now is share a video with you that is available through the links YouTube playlist. So at the end, you'll have access to all of these resources. This is a video from Travis Combs, At.the's branch chief, talking about why UDL is important and why At.the decided to work with CAST for this project. So Long, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and play that video.
So the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education, At.the, we're actively looking for opportunities to promote program improvement, as well as really support administration priorities. And some of those include like increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion in how we approach trainings and communications. So that's why we're really excited to have the CAST team updating our Learning to Achieve materials using their Universal Design for Learning framework. A couple of the key goals to the project are really to update the definitions around learning disabilities and learning differences, to utilize a coherent diversity, equity, and inclusion framework, to update the research methodology to include current federal regulations, as well as frameworks rooted in UDL and DEI. And then lastly, they'll be creating one research-based interactive resource that will include multiple methods of delivery and 7 different training modules using the UDL-based asset-driven approach to learning differences. These 7 professional development modules specifically were created to support adult basic education instructors to effectively teach and support neurodiverse adults, including those with learning disabilities as well as learning differences. And the main goal of these modules is really to fill them with research-based hands-on strategies that support educators, helping them meet the needs of their learners. These materials are freely available on At.the's Literacy Information and Communication System, or LINK's website that supports adult educators and adult learners.
Thank you so much, Long. And Travis said they are available, but I'm just going to put one small asterisk there. They will soon be available. But I think that gives you, those words from Travis give you a very nice framework for how At.the is viewing the work at CAST, infusing Universal Design for Learning, and then how we've been developing these new modules. So let me go ahead. So what is Universal Design for Learning? Maybe I'll throw this out to the group here. Maybe I'd like to take a quick small poll. How familiar are you with Universal Design for Learning? And you can just drop a number in the chat. Number 1 would be you understand the words universal, design, and learning, but they're not familiar with them as a single phrase. And a 5, so on a 1 through 5 scale, a 5 would be you could write the book on UDL. So I just ask if anyone was willing to drop into the chat, or if all of us could just share, where are you at with your Universal Design for Learning understanding? Great, I see people are already dropping some numbers in. Terrific. Thank you so much for doing this, everyone.
I see quite a few 1s and 2s, a few 4s coming through.
Good. Let's call on Heidi and Elizabeth, Luis, when we want to hear from the field. No, I'm joking. Don't worry, we won't do that. But no, it's helpful to see that we have quite a range of variability in the room, right? In the virtual room. So to support that variability, we're going to give some background knowledge, a general understanding of what UDL is, and we'll also give you resources so that you can learn more on your own. So What is universal design for learning? We think of universal design for learning as a framework. So you can see this image here. This is a house, the framing of a building, a home. A framework is a skeletal structure that provides support, right? Which can be then flexibly designed. So how you move the rooms around, what you hang on the walls, that's all flexible. But the framework itself is really that skeletal supporting structure. So UDL is that structure for educators, right? That can help educators ensure that there is an accessible, welcoming, inclusive learning environment that supports all students. So that's a generalized understanding of UDL. We also have a video description of UDL. We're going to show this, and part of why we're showing it is there are some UDL moves. Luis and I like to call it, there are like our dance moves, but there are UDL moves. So there are UDL moves in this video that we can just quickly point out as an example of what UDL is and how it can inform the design of instruction. So Long, I would just ask you to play this.
Maybe we can ask people as the video plays, they can share in the chat.
Universal design for learning.
Oh yeah, Long, yes, Luis, go. I think that's a great idea. Please
Share
finish
in
that
the chat.
sentence.
Share in the chat any UDL moves that you see modeled in the design of this video. All right, sorry about that.
It's okay.
So universal design for learning is a framework that's based on many fields that together make up the learning sciences. And it's really focused on designing from the beginning with a broader range of learners in mind. So not anticipating that everybody's going to interact or understand things in the same ways, but that they're going to need different ways of accessing the information, of engaging with it, of engaging with one another, of wanting to show up in the first place. Accessibility is really our floor. So if you imagine kind of building a house, you're not going to build a house without a good foundation, right? Accessibility is really about, can they access the environment? Can they understand the materials we're giving them?
Another thought is that the barriers are in the environment rather than in the person. And so that we can design for those barriers. We can be proactive in our design if we come into it with that mindset that there is variability and that a one-size-fits-all solution, it's not going to work. We need to create flexible solutions that allow people to customize and personalize how they use the environment to accomplish their goals.
I really was drawn to UDL because it came out of the disability community when the Americans with Disability Act became law and buildings had to be made accessible for folks that have mobility challenges, such as getting curb cuts and automatic doors opening. And what they discovered is that making changes for one slice of the population was actually beneficial for many people. Like, for instance, the curb cuts are beneficial for baby strollers and bicycles, and taking that and then using that same concept in a classroom where you have a variety of students that have disabilities, maybe diagnosed or undiagnosed, learning challenges. So that's usually how I promote it, is that this is going to be beneficial for the majority of your students. And it's really a way of reducing barriers and making learning inclusive for all.
So Luis, this is great. I just want to draw everyone's attention. We have some folks who've spotted some UDL moves already. So Marilyn said dark backgrounds with lighter font and the use of visual images. Michelle said closed captioning. Sandra also said closed captioning and added the ASL interpreter. We have visuals represented again. Luis is part of UDL, yes. So Luis was in that video, so I love that folks noticed. Changing video display demo, yep. And then limited text per slide. Marilyn, that's a great observation. One additional thing that I'll just throw out a UDL move is to explain something multiple ways, right? We've given you multiple means of understanding UDL. We've explained it with the structural reference and the building, and now we've explained it using a video, right? So we're trying to give you multiple ways of consuming or understanding the same information. Luis, anything else, any moves you want to point out before we move on?
Well, just that in choosing the images too, we are very careful at CAS to provide representation in the images that we choose or the stock video that we choose to include in the background. That's a deliberate choice on our part to make sure that people can see themselves in the video. So that's an important component as well.
Great, good. Oh, Marilyn almost said that too. Yes, awesome, Marilyn. So the UDL guidelines. So we have the UDL framework. We have this concept of what universal design for learning is. It's a structure, research-based structure that educators can learn, volunteers can use, administrators can use. We can all use to design learning environments. The guidelines is what you see in front of you, where we really break down those research-based best practices that are called out in the framework. So we really say, look, offer multiple ways for people to offer flexible options and multiple ways for people to engage, way to consume the information, representation, to take that information in, and then multiple ways for people to show what they know or engage with the material and or demonstrate what they've learned, right? So really it's about options and choice. I had to, yeah, Sandra said UDL is just good teaching practices for everyone. Totally agree, Sandra. We like, if Luis sometimes has sound that he plays, and I think we would play like a cheering sound for you for that one, Sandra. Yes. I will say, just to pause here, we often have people say UDL is good teaching practices. Absolutely. What UDL does offer is also language to talk about good teaching, because so many times, right, in our adult learning environments, we have volunteers who maybe have never taught before, or we have educators who are coming out of elementary education and now teaching adults. So universal design for learning gives us some language to talk about, describe, and make adjustments so that we can all be on the same page about what good teaching is. Luis, not to knock my son's driver's ed teacher, but I remember during COVID, he took driver's ed online. Like, let's not even talk about that. And then I remember hearing the teacher say, look to the left, look to the right. You know, 2 of you will fail this class. 2 of the people you looked at will fail this class, right? And he thought that was good teaching. So it's important for us to have some context by which to sort of describe and some language to talk about good teaching. Okay, so I got a little excited and hit that move forward button. So why is it important to design learning? What you see here is an image of Louis Sullivan, who is the person given the credit for coining the phrase form ever follows function, which is this idea that if we design well, if we design for functionality, the form will follow. So why it's important to design learning is to start with making sure we have a plan for constructing the learning, the object or the system, for implementing the system, and then that we are focused on solving problems, right? And when we're designers, we rely on data, and we don't just focus on how something looks. We really focus on how it works for the largest number of people. And I think that it's important to note here, relying on data, universal design for learning is called out in all federal legislation that governs education, called out in Perkins 5, called out in ESSA, called out in Higher Ed Act. So it's really not just Luis and Amanda who think UDL is good, right? It's a research-based best practice. So, you know, this is a little moment where we can laugh and we can enjoy kind of some humor, hopefully, in this presentation. What happens if we aren't proactively designing? Well, we get things like this. I follow this forum on Reddit, and it's about bad design. So what you see here is a sign, and because of the way that it's been designed, it looks like it says fashion fart, right? Who thought they would be coming to this state TA and hearing the word fart? But there you go. So it looks like it says fashion fart. That's a little bit funny. You have another visual in front of you that is so confusing that it appears to say, instead of don't drive, you know, drive safely, it appears to say do die safely, right? And then you have a final image here that shows the number 5. But I've counted those bananas multiple times, and there are definitely 6 bananas. So what can happen if we aren't proactively designing is we can give the wrong information, we can give confusing information, or we can just give slightly funny but not accurate information. And Luis, maybe, do you have any interest, Luis, in sort of talking to us about what it means to design when we say good design is necessary for some, but beneficial for all?
Yeah, and you may have a slide on this, but there's this concept of the curb cut effect. So if you think about a curb cut, originally they were developed to help people with disabilities who are wheelchair users to better navigate the environment, right? But it turns out that many other people benefit from that type of design, including parents who are pushing a stroller, or travelers who have heavy luggage, or delivery people that are pushing a cart with heavy boxes on it. So it's that idea that if we design for one group of people, in this case, people with disabilities, often those designs benefit us all. And on the screen, we have a range of different examples of that. The automatic doors, right? If your hands are busy because you're carrying groceries, you definitely appreciate that those doors are available in your building. We have texting, which is technology that was made possible in order to provide improved communication for people with disabilities originally. And now we use it all of the time, especially our teenagers seem to use it as the preferred method of communication. Easy grip tools were developed by a husband who wanted to make it easier for his wife and for himself, right, to be able to handle the utensils as their arthritis got worse. And so now we have tools that everybody can use in the kitchen to be able to participate in cooking activities. And then my favorite example is closed captioning, right, where this is originally developed in the 1970s for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. But we know that when we're traveling and we're in a busy airport and we want to follow what's going on in the news on the monitors, we can make use of those captions to follow along with the audio that we may not be able to hear in that busy environment. So these are all examples, again, where one solution was developed with one group in mind, but all of society really benefits from that curb cut effect in action.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Luis. So the next slide that we wanted to show you really focuses on this idea. So in adult education, we know adults are sometimes reticent to disclose if they have a learning difference or a learning disability, or they may not even be aware, right? If we have adults who've gone through the educational system and then have to return, maybe during that time the system wasn't recognizing their learning difference or their learning disability. Sometimes what happens is volunteers or educators will say to us, look, I haven't had to support anyone who has a learning difference or a learning disability. So we will default to designing for the average, right? The average learner. But in all learning contexts, there's variability, especially in adult education. So what we want to highlight here is that when we design for folks, as Luis said, who are maybe traditionally or typically in the margins or not considered in the design, we actually design a better experience for everyone, because everyone at some point experiences what we consider permanent, temporary, or situational disabilities. And I'm going to hand that over to Luis just to see if he wants to say anything about this.
I would just say that we experience permanent, temporary, or situational barriers because disability goes beyond just the experience with the environment. It also includes people's lived experience. But, this image just has some examples of that. Somebody who was born with one arm, somebody who has an arm injury, or a new parent who's holding a baby. Each of those people are going to need some supports in order to be able to use an interface, for instance, with one hand. And there are other examples here. Somebody who's blind, somebody who's had cataract surgery, or a distracted driver who may not be able to look at the screen so that they can be safe as they look up on the road.
Thank you so much, Luis. And remember, I'm just gonna pause here and say, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas you want to share with us, please drop those in the chat or come off mic and shout those out to us. Another consideration for this presentation is we are as Marcella said at the opening, all of this information will be shared with you through this deck. So if you wanted to return back to your states and share with your directors, we have shared here with you the Microsoft. Microsoft has a, oh my gosh, Luis, it's blanking my mind.
It's the Inclusive Design Toolkit.
Yes, thank you, Luis. Has an inclusive design toolkit that you can grab and also share with those folks that are on your teams at the state level, or that you can disseminate out to the people on the ground really doing this work. So just want to point that out. all the videos we've shared are freely available on YouTube through links. So if you wanted to pull down a video and share it with your team and have a discussion, please do that. Another thing that we know about adult learners is, another thing we know about learners in general is that trauma impacts learning. And this is, not a trauma-informed webinar. This is about UDL, but the Illinois Community Senior Director for Adult Education and Literacy, Kathy Olson-Tracy, is someone we interviewed for the development of these At.the modules, and she speaks very eloquently about the impact of trauma on our adult learners. And so we just wanted to share that with you before we wrap up the UDL section, because we know that there are identifiable barriers that adult learners face when they come into our programs. And we want to help you understand that UDL, the designing using universal design for learning, can really help remove or reduce those barriers. So yes, Long, if you don't mind playing this video.
The research tells us that well over 60% of individuals have a trauma history of trauma exposure. The numbers are even higher for adult education students, ranging up as high as almost 84%. So at a level of well over half of our adult learners in our country currently have experienced trauma and have a trauma history. So integrating a very intentional trauma-informed process is going to serve all of your students, but is specifically going to help the well over half of your students who have had trauma exposure. If a student has a history of trauma exposure and they come into your program and they're working on goal setting, and if we haven't created the right environment for them to be successful, they may not feel like they have full voice and choice and control of the situation. They may not feel like they're full collaborators and partners in this direction. Once that happens, what we're doing is creating a space for them to not feel engaged and to not feel part of the process and to not feel fully active in this overall process. And those students are not students we're going to hang on to. They're going to leave. Whether they leave by putting their head on a desk and not paying attention and fully participating, whether they leave by staring out of a window, that freeze, flight, fight syndrome, or whether they leave by walking out of the program. These are the students that need our additional support, and they need that support for a problem that they have not yet identified as actually a problem. So that is where our responsibility comes in, to create the environment for the student to be successful.
So we're showing these videos, again, just as a reminder, so that you can use them in your program. So as the state director, if you wanted to offer these videos out to teams or to leaders, to educators, to directors of adult ed, as discussion points, right, as ways to consider program improvement, to think about the experience from the learner as conversation starters. Yes, thank you, Luis. We want to make sure that we're considering, right, all of the barriers, and we're proactively thinking about the barriers that adult learners could face. And that will impact retention, right? That will impact the ability for the learner to engage. And what we're offering to you is that universal design for learning as a framework starts to already do that lift. It provides your educators, your administrators, ways to talk about good learning. So I'll just wrap up this section with saying we need to design first, because if it isn't your struggle, it's invisible to you. It's often invisible to you. And so some of us have the lived experience of being an adult education student, which is phenomenal. But many of us and many of our volunteers volunteering in our programs may not have that lived experience. And UDL offers us a way to proactively design and think about the experience from the learner's perspective. So I'm going to ask everyone to pause here and let's have a discussion about UDL, and then we'll move into the new modules that we've created and how we could work together and how you can use those and disseminate those out to your teams. But let's take a quick pause, reflection and question time. If you have any questions, any reflections, comments, or concerns, please share those in the chat, or we would invite you to respond to one of the following prompts. This makes me wonder. I noticed that. I agree, disagree. I would like to know more about. So Luis and I are former teachers, but when Luis does his webinars, he plays music. I'm not going to be able to play music for you, but I am going to be quiet for something like 30 seconds so you have time to respond to the prompt in the chat. I think I'm almost there, so I'll give you guys about a little bit more time, and then we'll see what people put in the chat. Great. Okay, thank you so much. I am going to share a link as well in the chat. So I'm just looking through what folks wrote. UDL is an equity tool. It is by design culturally responsive. Yes. So there is a great article on the overlap between UDL and culturally responsive teaching. Came out in 2019. I'm going to drop that in the chat if anyone's interested in diving into that a little bit more. Heidi said, I'd like to know more about how we apply UDL to multilingual situations and accommodate our language users. Luis, do you want to talk some of the examples? Yes.
I can address that a little bit. Obviously, we have limited time today, but one of the UDL guidelines, actually a whole row of the UDL guidelines, really focuses in on communication and how do we support language, syntax, notation, because math, right? It's its own language and has its own requirements, and then communication across cultures. So definitely lots of research in that area and lots of tools that have been developed to support multilingual learners. I forgot to mention in my identification, I'm a multilingual learner myself. I learned English as an 11-year-old when I came to the United States. So it's something that actually attracted me to UDL from the beginning because I didn't have a disability. Well, I had a disability, but I wasn't diagnosed until later in life. So you can see that multisectionality or intersectionality that can be addressed through the use of UDL, but definitely check out that guideline in the build layer of the UDL guidelines. Has lots of information on multilingual learners.
Yeah, thank you so much, Luis. And I'll just add that many of the UDL strategies support multi-language learners. So turning captioning on, right? Using a graphic organizer. So teaching learners how to take notes and then letting them take visual notes when note taking. So we have seen this very successfully used to support multi-language learners. And I'm going to drop my email in the chat. I did see that some folks were wondering about UDL experts in their area, so we can share that information with you. Beth said, I thought the chart outlining permanent, temporary, and situational barriers was powerful. Yes, I did too, Beth, and Microsoft has recently, in addition to physical accessibility toolkit focused on accessibility in that way, they've also thought recently about cognitive accessibility, which is something we're really thinking about too. How do we support executive functioning? How does UDL support our learners who have ADHD and our learners who are struggling with executive functioning, self-regulation? Jennifer said, I would like to hear someone go through the process or when he or she or they is just beginning to develop a lesson using UDL. Jennifer, we would love to do that with you and for you. Maybe that's a second webinar, or you can contact us on the side and we have some UDL lesson design templates that we can share with you. Michelle said, makes me wonder how I can be better with emotionally traumatized students. Absolutely. I think Kathy Tracy Olson, who was in the video and is the Illinois State Director, I'm not voluntolding her, but she has a lot of information on that, and as do we, so please feel free to reach out. I see a lot of examples from K-12, but would like to see more for adult education. Absolutely. The COABE Spring 2022 journal, which I'd happy to drop in the chat, actually has 2 great articles on UDL and adult education. And I also have some other examples for UDL and adult education. I will say actually all of the experts that appear in these videos are adult education teachers or were adult education teachers. So we really did try to focus on that. Phyllis said, I noticed that teaching with all students' experience in mind helps with engagement and overall efficiency. Thank you so much, Phyllis. If I could play a cheering sound, I would. Absolutely. Part of the pushback sometimes around UDL is this going to take me longer? And that what we hope to say to people is it may initially take you longer slightly to design, but it will save you time in the end. So what I'm going to do is drop my email in the chat, and please feel free if you wanted the UDL template, the lesson design, et cetera, just please email me and I will share those with you. Okay, so what happened is the team at At.the reached out. They were very interested in how could universal design for learning inform the design of adult education experiences, specifically for learners who have learning differences or learning disabilities. And we put our heads together, and what we first did is we started with a review of the Learning to Achieve documents. So we did a detailed literature review. We found that these documents were beneficial. They live in the LINCS website. I would encourage everyone to go to the LINCS website. It's a great resource, has some wonderful resources, and would be a great place for us to all come together as a community to talk about these barriers and how we can design for them. Oh, good. Sandra said I participated in those train the trainer sessions. Great, Sandra. So we found that this L2A, these modules were useful for identifying gaps in the literature, and they were useful at the time. But what we found was that and then we went into LINCS and we did a design and UX analysis where we really looked at the visuals that were appearing, and we looked at the text, how easy was it to use, how were folks using it. So then what we found, though, is that a lot of the L2A research was older, right? It was some of it was 20 years or older. The most of it, almost all of it, was 10 years or older. So we really started to think, how can we update our thinking around learning disabilities and learning differences has shifted, right, in the last 20 years. And so how do we update the L2A modules? And what we decided was we could introduce and infuse universal design for learning. Another piece of what we did to really make sure that these new modules are filled with toolkits and hands-on and that they're useful and the usability is high is we talked to the adult education community, right? And we asked questions of folks in the field. How do we support the variability of learning? Finland is open, right? That's a question we had to tackle and think about. How do we help students become independent learners? How do we support all learners? And you'll see here, we did focus on English learners, racially diverse learners, students who have been traditionally marginalized, and those with learning differences. And then where do we find strategies we can apply in the classroom? That was a huge ask. The field is hungry for strategies that can be applied in the classroom and immediately used. So we did some interviewing, we talked with the community. And one of the folks we talked with was Wendy Sweeney. She is the manager at the Minnesota Adult Basic Education Physical and Non-Apparent Disability Assistant. And Wendy, actually, in Minnesota, has been using UDL for a number of years to help design the physical environments where they're doing this work, where they're doing this adult education teaching. I think we might skip this video from Wendy, but I think you should all return to it. It's a really useful video environment. But
Amanda, I'm sorry, you keep cutting in and out for me.
Same here, Amanda. Maybe you want to turn off your camera for a little bit, see if your bandwidth improves.
Okay, I'm there now. Okay, good. So let's go back. So let's just go back 1 second. Sorry about this, everybody. We also interviewed experts from the field. So we reached out to experts in design, in online design, in adult ed, and you can see here some of the experts that we reached out to. The learning from the experts was really, we need to give multiple on and off ramps in these modules. So folks who are using these modules might come in to get a certificate. The modules all include a certificate of completion, which I think is important at the state level for you to know about and to know that you can ask for these certificates or give credit if you have if there's a requirement at your state level to complete X number of hours of professional development. They all come with a certificate of completion. But we also wanted to include places where folks could go in, get some information they needed, and leave the module, as well as creating an on-ramp into a community of practice. So each module is linked to a community forum, which I'll talk about more, where the folks in your state can meet adult educators in other states, ask questions, and become part of a group. So I think I wanted to surface that. So one thing we did want to know is, are you currently using the L2A modules? Maybe what professional development support is useful to you? And what barriers do you see impacting professional development for adult education teachers in your state? And maybe we could just focus on that one. What barriers do you see really impacting the professional development for adult education teachers in your state? Yes, thank you, Kim. Very part-time teachers. We heard that a lot. Teacher turnover. Yeah, go ahead, Luis. Sorry.
No, I was just going to localize. Time to participate isn't time, always a barrier. Funding.
Someone said earlier, Luis, in the chat, that this made them consider how it would be helpful to have more resources. Let me find that. This makes me wonder how much more we could do if we work together to share resources. So Kim said that earlier, and I think, Kim, that's definitely something we would like to see these modules and Universal Design for Learning do, something that we could come together and remove some of those barriers that can help us streamline the volunteer process, the onboarding process, and ensure that folks really do understand how learning works and have some best practices. I think a concern in my state is sustainability. Maribel, maybe you could talk a little more about that, either come on mic or share in the chat.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
please.
just sustaining learning and bringing it back to our agencies or organizations. So, and then spreading that knowledge to our teams, particularly because in Pennsylvania, we are having, a teacher shortage. I'm sure other agencies in other states are experiencing that as well. And as such, sustaining the knowledge within an organization and furthering the spread of that knowledge and making sure people can implement learning in a kind of in a realistic way that fits with the flow of people in and out of our agencies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's so helpful, Maribel. Thank you so much. So one thing I will say in the design of these modules, as far as sustainability goes, we really tried to offer these modules in an asynchronous way. So these modules,
Sure.
You can come onto them in links, asynchronously engage with them. But in addition, at the end, you can download, we have fully accessible 508 compliant downloadable PowerPoints, so that if you wanted to take that training back to, like, let's say you had a director at a certain program who then wanted to bring that learning back to volunteers or bring that learning back to their teams on the ground, they don't necessarily have to go ahead and log into links. They can grab that downloadable PowerPoint and remix and reuse these materials. So that's one way we tried to think about sustainability, but I really appreciate what you're saying, and I think your concern is shared if I look in the chat. I see part-time workforce, hard to deliver in-depth multi-session PD. Absolutely, Heidi, which is again why we created these as asynchronous modules folks can dip in and dip out of. Conflicts with families, responsibilities, webinar, time to work. Most would prefer on-demand, work at your own pace. Brandy, that's essentially what we tried to create. Let's see, access to experts and funding. For face-to-face training, definitely the time to travel across the state, yes, and then part-time teachers. And so many of our part-time teachers are working full-time jobs in K through 12. Absolutely, and what I'll add, Beth, is we know that how we teach young kids, right, how I teach an elementary school student to read is much different than how I would teach an adult to read. And so we really tried to infuse andragogy into these modules. Maribel said, I'm sorry if you addressed this, but are they available now? They are coming, Maribel. So we have finished 508 compliance and we are in the final QA checks.
We are building your excitement. Coming soon.
Yeah, hard to prioritize training without some follow-along support. Yeah, good.
Thank you.
States, of course, states have to create the buy-in so that teachers pursue the additional professional development. Yes, true, and we're happy to help you do that. I think it might be useful maybe then just to point out again that UDL is called out in all federal legislation. So if you have teachers in K through 12 who want some credentialing or want to complete UDL training, it can apply to wherever they're teaching.
Amanda, can I address something really quick?
Of course, Luis, please.
So Phyllis says, it seems like there's a need for UDL for delivering professional development offerings. So one of the components that we built into the modules is what we call pro tips. And pro tips are designed to make the UDL more transparent because we don't just want to teach people about UDL, we want to teach people with UDL. In any environment that you're in, including adult education, we want to model it and we want to make it transparent. So throughout the modules, we sprinkled in, like good seasoning, these pro tips to remind you of what the UDL moves are within the modules.
Luis, I haven't heard you talk about the sprinkling and stuff. I really like this, so I'm stealing that, everybody. But yes, we really, it's sort of like if we didn't actually model UDL and believe in it and use it, then I think that would be a significant problem. I can't tell you how much PD I've been in where people talk about engagement by lecturing. Okay, sorry about that. So here are the modules, just so you can see them. We have the module titles on the left. So it all starts with the goal, learning that works for all, making math matter, making reading and writing matter, building communities for learning, self-advocacy for work and learning, and then improving systems for adult education. On the right, you see the community groups. So each module is linked to a community group, and it's very important that, like, I want to stress that the community groups are discussion areas where state leaders could visit these community groups. You could share your insight. You could encourage your local programs to join these. They're a really great place to ask questions, and they're moderated by adult educators who are experts in the field. So Kathy Tracy Olson, she moderates one. So it's a really wonderful resource, and I would encourage folks to try to drive engagement there. And also, just to reiterate one more time, each course ends with a course completion certificate, and these course certificate completions can be used for PD credit when they're accepted. So we just wanted to let you know those are the titles and the community forums they link to. And Carolyn also shared some information on links. Thank you so much, Carolyn. And then here's the components of each module. So each module has these components embedded within it. There are tasks that you can use, you actively can do, right? Reflect, think about, consider, finish the following prompt. So each module will have some set of tasks. Each module will have key ideas. These are these overarching big concepts we want you to take away from this module. As Luis said, each module will have pro tips. Pro tips can actually be at the end when you download that PowerPoint, print it out, hung on a one-sheet piece of paper next to your desk, next to your office, and then you can just glance up and try to use and utilize those. Each module has try it yourself section. These are activities that can be used within the adult learner context. So try this, show this video to your learners, reflect with them in this way. So each module has a try it yourself. And then finally, each module has a resource section where you can learn more, get resources, read more articles, find out more about toolkits. All of that information appears, these icons guide you as you're moving through the module. Oh, bing, here is a key idea. And you'll see a little icon and you'll see some text around it. I just want to tell you all that these modules were designed using what we call the STAR Legacy Cycle. So the STAR Legacy Cycle is a research-based best practice for how you teach adults to learn online. So please, if you're designing online learning right now in your own state, steal this. It's a free resource. It's an excellent research-based resource where you say you start with a challenge or a problem of practice or a story. You have the learner do an initial reflection on that problem of practice or story. You share new resources, perspectives with them, so the new learning. You wrap up and summarize, and part of that wrap up and that assessment is you ask the learner to think about their initial thought again. And you can see the learning happens when you have your initial thought, when your initial thought changes after you've gained new perspective and resource. That is where the learning is happening. And that's the key to this design model. So we wanted to take you through this really quickly. My understanding, Long, is that we have another 20-ish minutes because we want to give this back to you for the wrap up. Yes, we do? Great.
Yeah, I would say closer to 25 to 30 minutes. We
Perfect.
only need 2 minutes at the end. Yeah.
Awesome. So I would like to share this video from Jason Marshall then. So, but before we do, this is one of the challenges or the prompts or the problem of practice that we offer in the module. So this is actually comes to us from one of the modules. And this is Jason Marshall, and he is talking to us about his teaching practice and how he approaches teaching. And we would like you to imagine that you are in a faculty planning session or in a teacher planning session. Jason shares his perspective. And while he's speaking, you notice that you look around the room and you notice that some folks are a little confused or unsure of what Jason is saying. After you hear Jason speak, this is what I'd like us to think about. What would you say to the group in response to Jason's comments? And what research-based best practices do you currently recommend adult education teachers utilize to ensure they can support all learners? We'll come back to those, but maybe, Long, you could drop those 2 questions in the chat while we listen to the video from Jason.
In terms of being sensitive to the backgrounds of young people, there's not always a case that we're aligned and we have the similar backgrounds, right? So it could be that I have the same ethnicity as a young person. It could be we have the same attitudes about certain things, but from a class perspective, it could be a completely different experience. So for me, I can't then assume that just because I'm a man of color, a black man, that I'm going to automatically connect with a young cishet black man or a young students of color. I can't assume that because there's so many different things within the system, so many different ways of experiencing oppression that we won't share everything. I do think that, culturally relevant teaching to me means something different to me now than it did when I first heard it. I honestly feel now that the kind of the ethic behind culturally relevant approach or culturally relevant pedagogy to me is really seeing the whole person. And so when seeing the whole person is not only knowing what experiences they've had within the education system to date, you'll get some of that information in the intake, but even seeing how they show up and knowing about the systems within the education system within the US, maybe even knowing what it looks like within your city or town. And in some ways, I do think it's a matter of your will, or do you want to get to know your young people better? And because it's going to cost you something. I mean, it's work and you're sharing power in that learning space. And so I do think it starts with the will, the want to get to know, and the want to be able to share power, because if you're not sharing power, then it's power over. And that's not a space for learning, just knowing about the brain science behind people being the ability to learn in a space. If you're in fear, if you're anxious, if you're feeling like you're not being seen, if you're feeling like, for folks who may need to mask certain tendencies that maybe from a neurological standpoint, it's not a norm thing to do. maybe you like to fidget or you need fidgets to focus. I feel like, that's going to take over your mind and flood your mind, is my experiences as a teacher and a learner. But I also think that's part of engagement in terms of learning. If you're not providing chunks of learning to make it practical for the young person in their lived experience to be able to understand it, the transfer of that knowledge, or to let them or help them affirm something that they've already known, but they've never been in a space to actually look at themselves as having that as an asset. It's been more of something they had to use for survival, right? Maybe it's other people say they're clever. For them, it's like, I've had to survive, so I always have to be 10 steps ahead, or have like eyes in the back of my head, for lack of a better term. And so they may get that affirmed coming into their classroom as, oh, wow, I like how you sequentially took those steps, or you were able to kind of think outside the box. But when you get into a space where you can have that affirmed, I think that kind of speaks to your identity. Wow, I have a thing that's actually like not frowned upon. And even in the want, it also helps you grow. So I'll admit that part of it for me is also like, my learning it can only happen as much as I'm willing to engage with myself, to open up myself to young people and to even ways that I think and want to engage. So my experience is I have to have that intention from the outset, or else I can't even utilize these kind of frameworks of thinking or concepts or what have you.
Great. And let me just add the caveat that Jason referred to young people. In the description, the challenge, Jason works with 16 to 24-year-old learners who are out of school and out of work. So just so you know, he does work in the adult education space. He refers to them as young people, but these are adults 16 to 24 who are not in traditional K through 12, not in school, and not in work. So, and he works with a group in Atlanta. So that's all included in the challenge, but I forgot to mention. So let's just see, does anyone want to come on mic or in the chat, just share, does anything Jason said resonate for you? How would you respond to what Jason just said? And or what research-based best practices do you recommend adult education teachers utilize? Yeah, it's fun. Phyllis said a culturally relevant lesson plan. Great, Phyllis. I think that's another place where folks would love to know what your resources are. So if you have a link or you can draw our attention, I think that's super helpful. Michelle said the better you know your students, the better you can develop effective plans. Absolutely. So that's something that you could maybe help folks who are hearing Jason, you could help them understand. 100%. I love when he says you need to know the whole person, right? Understand the whole person. Yes, Luis, mirrors, windows, and sliding doors. Tell us about that, Luis.
It's a concept that I first learned from Jason, that when we think about the curriculum, we want people to see themselves in it. So that's the mirror. We want them to see beyond their current situation. So have some sort of aspirational goal. And so those are the sort of the windows looking beyond your current situation. And the sliding doors is just the flexibility that we want to build into the learning environment and the different entry points. So that's always stuck with me from working with Jason.
That's great. So you can imagine, let's go, I'm going to go to the next slide really quick and just show you. So Jason presented our challenge, our problem of practice. How do we think about the whole learner? What research-based practices are we providing for our adult education teachers? We just ask you to engage in the initial thought, right? We had an initial thought activity. And now we're going to share perspectives and new resources, right? So this would be covered in the module. So keep in mind, a key idea is a barrier to learning exists in the environment, not in the learner. So we would start to unpack that in the module. You can see this is part of that section that we're calling new learning perspectives or resources. Variability, we would talk about variability in the adult education classroom. So you can imagine this might be very beneficial for your volunteers, your part-time teachers who teach in the K through 12 environment. We do have slides with the long descriptions on them included in this deck. So please, if you need that, we have those included. But you can see here, this comes to us from the U.S. Department of Education 2022 National Reporting System that just shows that we have a variability in the education level, right? Variability in schooling, non-US based schooling versus US based schooling. We also talk in the modules. So here's our long description slide, just so everyone has access to that. And then we talk about variability in adult education classrooms by ethnicity and by age group, right? So I am fascinated to see if anyone wants to weigh in. I've heard from adult educators that we have higher proportions of 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds in our classrooms post-COVID, so that these numbers might look a little bit different, but we're bringing to light in these modules the variability that's really happening in our adult education classrooms. And here is the long description for ethnicity and our long description for age group data from those graphs, pie charts. So then included in the new learning would be some key concepts around UDL. This is the UDL module that we're unpacking today. The barrier is in the design, not in the learner. Key concept from UDL. We already talked about this. What's necessary for one is good for all. Learner variability is the norm and it's contextual. And then if learner variability is the norm and contextual, and we know that it's going to happen, we can predict and design for it. And then we share in the module additional resources, right? So what we have here is the UDL guidelines, which you've all already seen, but this is one of the ways it would be introduced to participants, to learners, to adult education teachers. And again, you would see this symbol, right, of the additional resources, and they would be shown the guidelines. And then we would make sure that they understand that UDL is a framework to do both proactive design, which we talked about. What's the learning goal? How do I anticipate the needs of the learners and design for it? But also UDL can become a really wonderful tool for reflective practice. What aspects have I not considered? How can I make my learning more accessible and more flexible? And then we share some really tangible strategies. So what are some UDL starter moves, right? How do I what's an easy dance move that I can learn to incorporate? Well, around engagement, you could offer 2 relevant choices of text. Give the learner choice around what they want to read. Provide choice of topics, choice of partner. Representation, provide the information so that the learner could read it aloud. They could have their own individual copies on paper, or they can digitally access it, right? Or you could even record it. And then around action and expression, how will students act on their understanding, providing them options like in an assessment, instead of always being text heavy, write an essay, write your response. We would encourage educators to do things like ask the learner if they could create a podcast, ask the learner if they could create an infographic. Maybe they want to do a blog. Maybe they want to do a thesis paper. I don't know anyone who wants to do a thesis paper, but there you go. Maybe somebody does. Flipgrid, great, Maribel, that's exactly right. And then we also encourage educators to create graphic organizers so that learners know exactly what they should be sharing and where, and they have a tool to do that. So then finally, we would provide some resources around trying it yourself. So you have watched a bunch of videos. I know we have a team from Arkansas here. I don't know if all of you know Wendy, but Wendy is one of our favorite folks in the whole world. And she is the Disability and Online Coordinator at the Arkansas Adult Learning Resource Center. So we have Wendy Bryant here. And all of the videos we've shared with you become these wonderful resources that you can share out. But I wanted to give you, Luis and I wanted to give you an example of how these videos turn into try it yourself. So we're going to watch this video from Wendy. I'll show you the try it yourself. We'll wrap up what's in these modules, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So Long, if you don't mind playing this video as well.
Some of our students, when they come in, then there's these barriers that we see, or these barriers that, or these flags that keep coming up, no matter if it's in math or reading or even in just basic executive functioning. What you might find is that they were not properly identified in that K-12 setting. You find that you have those students that if they were just good students. They weren't causing a scene. They weren't doing anything wrong. And, the teacher just kind of passed them along. So that the thing of the ones that fall through the cracks, these are real people that are falling through those cracks. So when they come to adult education, they don't want to disclose that. They don't want to say it in the beginning. But many of our educators, I'll get that phone call that says, Wendy, I have a student and they didn't say they had a disability, but you could just tell that there's something there. So now you're having to address that as an adult educator or as an adult education student. In addition to that, you have those students that had horrible experiences in the classroom. I remember personally of the trailer outside, or the trailer in the background, or the room or the classroom that was separated or segregated. And so there was this us and them, or they're not like us type of mentality that's established in the K-12. So they leave, they're gone from education for a couple of years, and then they realize they might need a little something to further their education or their career. They don't want to disclose that because it brings up those hard memories of that us and them. They don't want to be segregated or pointed out or feel different from anyone else because they've already had that experience and they're not trying to have that same experience. Then on top of that, we have adults that have become parents. And now their child is dealing with the same type of barriers that they dealt with as an adult. So they're coming to the classroom and they're seeing that their child is struggling with the same thing that they struggled with. And so that does put a little bit of a fire under our adult educators to learn how to address this, because they want to be able to help their child back home. So it's really important to understand that when you are trying to help a student that has those barriers, you're not only doing this for them, you're doing this for their entire family. So I always say something that I heard in a training, ATP, ask the person. Talk to them about their educational experience. Understand what it was like for them, so that you can understand what the foundational cracks were, as well as what the angst is as well.
So instead, in addition to showing this video in the module, what we do is we offer this try it yourself. So to support individual variability, ask the person. So Wendy mentions ATP. So now what we do is we say, try this in your own classroom, and we provide clear questions that you can use. Instead of just vaguely saying, ask the person about their educational experience, right? We say, ask the person questions like, what was your best learning experience and why? What was your worst learning experience and why? Can you tell me about a positive experience you had recently learning something new? What made it a good experience? When you teach someone something new, what do you focus on? So what we'll do throughout the modules is provide these videos and then provide these try it yourself activities that folks can really take home and use in the classroom. Then finally in the module, we'll have a wrap-up section, which, as we said, will include pro tips. So from the UDL module, the pro tips are use case studies in your instruction. Bing, 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 we did that, right? We showed you the case study with Jason. We've talked to you about Wendy. We've heard from Kathy, right? Use prompts or sentence starters. You've seen us model that throughout this whole presentation. Use video. Again, you've seen us model that. Use metaphors and analogies. Luis used a beautiful window, door, and sliding glass door, window, and mirror analogy, right? That earlier. So these are examples of how you can infuse some pro tips, some UDL moves into your own teaching practice. Then in the UDL module, you would have access to all of these try it yourself activities. So 9 try it yourself activities. Some examples are, we take that UDL video, which all of you have watched now, and we say, what would happen if we shared this video with learners? So we would say one try it yourself is to share the instructional UDL video with adult learners, and then have a discussion using the following prompts. What resonated for you when you watched this video? What are the benefits you see of UDL? How do you think you can apply UDL in your life? And where do you see me using universal design for learning in this class? right? So again, anytime we have a try it yourself, we have very clear activities for you to do. Another try it yourself activity is the 4 corners activity, where we ask folks to stand up, to move around the room, to think of themselves contextually as a learner. And I ask them to identify as either a north, you like to take action, an east, you like to see the big picture, a south, you like to consider everyone's feelings and hear all voices, or a west, you like to know all the details, who, what, when, where, why, how. And then you offer learners some questions. Consider some scenarios and some activities, and are you a north, south, east, or west when these various activities happen? This is a great activity to do with learners. You're in the grocery store shopping in a market you know well. In that case, Luis, I'm a north. I just plunge right in. I get the stuff I need immediately. Luis, if you're planning a party for your best friend, does your learning approach change at all? Or do you become a north, an east, a south, or a west?
I think I'm a West, more of a planner, and try to pay attention to the details.
That's great. And what this activity reveals for us is that learning is contextual. So while I might be a north when I'm shopping in a grocery store I know very well, like Luis, when I'm planning a friend's birthday party, I want it to go really well, so I become a west. I pay more attention to the detail. And then if you're on a committee deciding what curriculum to purchase, what are you there, Luis? Do you stay a west?
I'd probably be more on the big picture, the East. So again, the context matters.
Yeah, Beth is sharing that too. She's an East. I agree, Luis. I think we have to look, in that case, we would look at the big picture. What is the school like doing district wide or whatever? So I think this 4 corners activity is just another try it yourself that adult education teachers can use to help their learners understand that learning is contextual and to really break down some of those barriers. Because as we all know, adult learners who might not have earned their high school diploma, who are experiencing learning disabilities or learning differences, maybe who have failed to achieve some of their learning goals, they can have a sense of shame, right? There can be a struggle there. And often our educators may feel ill-equipped to address these beliefs. And so what we want to do is use our modules to help them understand. Heidi said, help them understand their children and family members' learning styles too. Yes. Yes, good, because then they can apply it to their kid, their family and their own children, right? Yes. Okay. So then we would come to assessment. So each module will have an assessment, which is it'll have a short quiz. A knowledge check is actually what I want to call it. It'll have a short knowledge check. And then they can earn a certificate when that knowledge check is completed. And it will also link them to those community forums that we discussed. So hopefully driving them to greater discussion with their peers across the country and folks they can learn from and with. And finally, we would go back to the way the module would be structured is you would think about that initial video with Jason, right? And you would say, remember, the goal of learning is to grow and change. Thinking about all the material you've read, thinking about our full presentation today, and all the things we've engaged with and how we've talked about UDL, reconsider the ways you might respond to Jason's original purposeful reflection we engaged in. How might your thoughts have changed? Are there new strategies that you would use, right? And what we would hope is that what you would say to Jason now might be different than what you would say at the beginning when we asked you. What learning theory would you share now with adult education educators? Has your perspective shifted or changed? And so I'm going to actually pause here and ask the group to respond. Come on, Mike, we would love to hear your voice, or in the chat. Has your perspective, I'm so sorry, has your perspective or knowledge shifted or changed through this presentation? And we'd love to share, if you could share with us how that maybe you've had that shift or that change. Okay. Luis, I'll say my perspective has shifted or changed around that idea of the window, the mirror, and the door. I really like that. I think that that's something I'm going to use. Oh, look, Heidi said that too. Love the window, sliding glass door analogy. Yep.
And I paraphrase
she's
that.
gonna
I'm
use
sure
that with her
there's
family and
even
her team.
I'm sure there's even better explanations of it, but I just love the metaphor for what we're trying to do when we design more inclusive and welcoming curricula.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Luis. So we want to have time for Q&A, and we'll just say that we are curious about how we can support, how we can make adult education teachers in your state or your context aware of these modules. I will be presenting in May at the state directors meeting in DC. So if you have teams that aren't on this call now and you'd like to have them learn more about UDL or learn more about these modules, please feel free to attend that session. And then how can we best support the use of these modules? And do you have any additional questions, comments, or concerns? So Jonathan said he has a better understanding is always helpful. Love the analogies and the input. Yes, Jonathan, thank you. And I love the input from your peers here in the chat. So helpful. Phyllis said, my perspective has changed. I feel more thoughtful in presenting to others. Love that, Phyllis. Thank you. Mirabelle said, will there be any technical assistance after the modules, after someone takes the modules? Yes, we have. I think part of that is the desire to help people join these community groups. The community forum leaders, moderators have had training in the modules, so they can answer a lot of those questions and provide some technical assistance. Carolyn, any thoughts on this question from Mirabelle? I don't want to speak out of turn here. Or
Carolyn,
Marcella.
Carolyn, if you don't mind, I can jump in and
great. So thanks, Marcella.
Yeah, sorry, and I encourage you to add anything if I don't hit it. But we're actually, Maribel, it's like you read our mind, or you have already seen the slide. In just a few moments, we have a poll to find out who would like some more technical assistance. So through links, in addition to this universal webinar series that we provide, we also provide technical assistance to either a cohort of states that are working on a similar topic, or intensive technical assistance to individual states working to provide them with tailored technical assistance. So if you can hold on to that, we will get your input in just a few moments on technical assistance, and we can follow up with you regarding that. Sorry,
Great,
Carolyn.
thank you.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Anything to add, Carolyn?
No, I think you covered it really well, Marcella and Amanda, but we certainly encourage you to join the community groups and participate in those threads, but we'll also be taking back this interest and discussing it as a team that there might be interest in technical assistance after taking the module. So thanks for the questions.
Yeah, and I'll just, Carolyn, Maribel also added, and then evaluation. How can agencies evaluate the impact of taking or using the content from the modules? And I'll just offer that, such a wonderful collaboration with Octay, and we would love to continue that if there's a desire around creating some kind of evaluation of the programming, or, however we can support you, Carolyn and Marcella. Love what you're doing, and want to make sure that folks are getting the most out of these modules. Another question we had is, how can we support the use of them? Is there marketing, branding? We have a webinar coming out on links that will be available. Anyone who's part of links will have access to. We also have a CAST free webinar that we'll put out, and so hopefully we'll be sharing all these resources. And Carolyn and Marcel, I'll just draw your attention to one last comment. I'd love to have a conversation about evaluating the impact. I would too. So I'm going to drop my email in the chat again, and please, include me in that. Yes, great. Thank you, Maribel. I have your email. I'll get that and send you an email. And there are journal articles. Maybe there's, another presentation we want to offer at COABE. However we can support the usage of these. The worst case scenario would be that we design them and then they sit on a shelf and nobody uses them. Anyone else? Questions, comments, concerns? You know, right now you can access all the videos I shared with you. So we have that links playlist shared in the deck right now, so you can have all access to those videos. But the modules are coming soon. So please keep coming with questions, comments, but I will say that now that we've shared the links playlist with you, this pretty much wraps up our presentation. Luis, is there anything you wanted to add? You know, one last thing I'll say is the adult education space is a place where UDL belongs, and we can see the benefits of it. It's new for CAST to be taking the foray into adult education, and so we would welcome, you know, any feedback, thoughts, co-design, whatever seems appropriate.
No, I would just add a big thank you for all the work that you do for adult learners, and that with UDL, we just are looking for ways to enhance it and make it more inclusive by design and for everyone. So we're just building on top of the excellent work that you already do to support adult learners. So in whichever way we can support that, we're happy to do that.
Great. So as we're wrapping up then, I wanted to, if we can move forward to the next slide, we had a poll to Maribel's question. If you are interested in continuing to receive support on this topic, I ask that you complete the poll that you should see on your screen. Let us know if you're interested. And we also recognize that everyone has a lot on their plate. So if now is not the right time, feel free to indicate that as well. Great. All right, so we will reach out to those of you who did indicate that you are interested or just maybe interested, and share some information with you about what we have planned and find out how we can better support you. If we can go to the next slide, I just want to, as I see that we're wrapping up, share a little bit about next month's webinar. The topic is From Patchwork to Pathways, Structures for Student Success. That'll be a continuation of the conversation that you may have joined us for in October, talking about structures that we have in place to help our students. Long has put into the chat the link that you can use to register for that. It will take place on May 31st. It'll be from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Sorry, 3 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern, noon to 1:30 Pacific time, and we encourage you to register now. We also ask that if you have any questions about the topic of structures that you can put into place to help your students' success as they progress along their career pathways and to post-secondary transitions, we want to make sure that we're addressing your needs. So please be sure to include those in the chat. Please feel free to continue to use the chat to ask any final questions that you might have. Again, either for next month's webinar or for Amanda and Luis. And I think that with that, I just want to say thank you to both Amanda and Luis for your wonderful presentation today. Thank you to all of us for joining. I echo what Amanda put in the chat about the wonderful conversation, the wonderful engagement. I know that I really appreciated all of that, and I learned so much. And I hope that you did too. I hope to see all of you next month for our next webinar. Thanks, everyone.